Hey guys, welcome. I'm Garrett with Fossil Rim. And if you've been following along with us, you know that we've recently had some red wolves come to Fossil Rim. And we want to talk about how we did that because it was actually really cool. There's a nonprofit that we worked with called LightHawk, and I have Esther. How you doing, Esther?
Hi, great.
So Esther Duke is with LightHawk, and she's going to talk a little bit about how they are able to do this for institutions like Fossil Rim. So first of all, Esther, let me give you that first question. For those that aren't familiar with the important work that LightHawk is doing, what is your kind of like your elevator pitch, that 30 seconds of the meat about what LightHawk is doing?
Sure. So LightHawk, we are a conservation nonprofit, and we advance conservation with hundreds of strategically planned flights every year, working in partnership with conservation nonprofits and some agencies, state and federal agencies as well. And in addition to doing the species survival kinds of flights that we just did with you guys to transport the red wolves, we also do wildlife surveys, conservation easement monitoring, video and photography flights, and education and engagement sort of tours for elected officials and major donors, because the aerial perspective helps people understand issues at the landscape scale and at the watershed scale that are sometimes hard for people to connect with on the ground. And so that's the kind of work that we do at LightHawk.
So it's going beyond even just transferring animals. Y'all have a whole breadth that y'all are getting into. That's before this, I hadn't even considered the idea how it seems like air logistics could be involved with conservation. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I guess how does a company like LightHawk get started? I mean, with that, being air logistics, how does one get into conservation work?
Sure. So our organization started with one man and a plane, and his realization that he had a unique perspective where he could see things that were happening on the landscape that most people weren't seeing. So in the Pacific Northwest, he was seeing massive deforestation with sort of these corridors of trees along the roads. So, most people driving through that landscape or, just near road areas weren't seeing sort of the extent of deforestation. He also saw a large scale mine project that was being built on the rim of the Grand Canyon. And so for these kinds of issues, he brought up elected officials and media and other stakeholders to show them what he was seeing and help to make changes in policy around, some of these critical issues. And the organization just sort of grew from there. Now we have a small staff of conservation professionals like myself, as well as our volunteer pilot corps and folks sort of working on the logistics of flight planning.
So it sounds like y'all started even in a different area of conservation. How did y'all get to this point where you saw the niche of transferring animals?
Yeah, so we've been doing what we call species survival flights for a long time. I mean, LightHawk has been around for 41 years now, and to varying degrees, we've been involved in transporting wildlife, but that has grown a lot in recent years. And part of that is due to increasing restrictions on flying animals and commercial airlines. So sort of that increased need, and also just more partners, zoos and aquariums and other captive breeding facilities, learning about LightHawk and how we can customize these flights to offer more rapid and comfortable and safe transport for wildlife. So we support recovery programs, so captive breeding for genetic diversity, and then juveniles. We fly juveniles bred in captivity for release in the wild, and mostly focus on native species in North America, but we do occasionally fly for active recovery programs for non-natives. And then obviously during the pandemic, with so many challenges with canceling commercial flights, we've had more requests than ever this year.
Yeah, and I do want to convey, because I was with our carnivore curator when we picked up the wolves rather, and I want to convey just how appreciative he was specifically, but I can imagine that these institutions would be, because not only are you delivering these animals, but you're making this not even a half a day's effort to get these animals, whereas normally, so for instance, 2 of these wolves came from Point Defiance, which is in Washington, Tacoma, Washington. So that would have been 30 plus hours one way to pick up these animals. Whereas now, I mean, it's, it took us 30 minutes to get over to the airport to pick the animals up. We were able to have them in their enclosures by 6:30 when we left here at sometime around 3. So it's really I mean, he was just gushing about how awesome this was.
Absolutely, and it helps a lot with reducing stress for the animals too, because they're not in transport so long, which we've found increases their sort of reproductive, the chances that they will be successful in reproducing in a given season, because they're not trying to get over the stress of multi-day transports and layovers and being in cargo and handled roughly and all of that. So and for some especially when we're transporting masked bobwhite quail chicks to be released in the wild, or California condors, or even Mexican wolf pups, mortality rates are much lower, because in those cases sometimes they don't make it with those long road transports, being away from a mother, or out of the kind of habitat that's going to best support them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and these red wolves, the point is to keep them as wild as possible. And I'm sure with the bobwhite quail as well, because, you want these animals to succeed in the wild, which is the whole point of this. So yeah, reducing that stress, I mean, it's huge, and obviously did, because I mean, an airplane ride versus a car ride is, I imagine, a whole lot less stressful on that animal, just noise alone. So, but anyway, back to kind of our regularly scheduled programming here. So how is it that you have like 300 volunteers? And I know you said, which I didn't know, that y'all been around for 40 years. So that's kind of how you amass a crew like that. But I guess I'm surprised at the sheer number of people that want to help in that way, and that they're available.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are highly skilled pilots who own their own aircraft, and they have a special skill set and the resources to make a positive difference in the world, and they want to give back. They want to do something good with aviation. They love to fly, and there's a lot of jokes out there about the $100 hamburger, just flying somewhere to have lunch and fly back, because you want to get out and enjoy flying, and LightHawk provides an opportunity for them to do so much more with those flights, and to have more interesting and engaging kinds of routes, and the things we're asking them to do, flying with mounted cameras, or flying with the door off for a National Geographic photographer to take pictures out of their plane, or what have you. I mean, flying wolves, it's they're doing something that both gives back and provides a more engaging way to use their flights.
Yeah, and as Jack said when we met with him, when he dropped off those wolves, he said it's a mixing of passions, which I thought was a really cool thing. So it's able to use both of those interests together for a really good thing. That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. So kind of segueing there, we worked with Jack Long. He was our pilot, and he mentioned this wasn't his first time delivering wolves. He was also a part of the, I guess, the Mexican wolf program that's been going on. also been a part of endangered condors that have been released. How many conservation, like species survival, as you were saying, programs do y'all have going?
Yeah, so Jack's a very accomplished volunteer pilot with LightHawk. In addition to the 5 wolves that he transported on this recent flight, he's actually completed 9 flights since 2011, transporting a total of 17 Mexican wolves.
Whoa, just wolves, that's cool, yeah.
And 2 of those were international transports into Mexico, which are logistically very challenging for any of those cross-border transports. So a huge help to the team trying to work through all of that. And then in his time at LightHawk as a volunteer, he's also flown a red panda, 6 California condors, 20 black-footed ferrets, and 28 falcons. I think that's both alplomado and orange-breasted falcons.
Wow, and all those are species survival, like those endangered species that are in need of transport.
That's right.
For breeding or just release, or kind of both?
His are a combination of both. Yeah, they're either for release into the wild or moving between facilities to maintain and increase genetic diversity.
Gotcha. Yeah, kind of, which is our situation at the moment. Okay, well, so how much effort, how much work rather, has gone in with the critically endangered red wolf so far with LightHawk? Is this the first opportunity y'all have had, or many?
Well, we flew 2 red wolves back in December of 2013. And that was a transport from the Wolf Conservation Center in Salem, New York, bringing a male out to St. Vincent Island in Florida, to pair with a female. And then we brought back the male that he was replacing. And, they were trying to get active breeding between that pair there. And since then, we hadn't done any red wolf transports until this recent one. As we mentioned, Mexican wolf species survival program is one of our major project partners for about a decade now. So we've flown 57 wolves for that SSP for captive breeding or release into the wild. And that's resulted in 37 offspring and 17 eventually released into the wild, including 7 pups that we cross-fostered this spring.
So this is going into Arizona, these animals have been going into Arizona and New Mexico?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yep. And so we officially launched a partnership with the Red Wolf SSP beginning this year, with this transport being the first of what we hope will be many successful transports to come. Yeah,
we hope so too. The Red Wolf certainly needs it. They, I know what's going on in North Carolina, and anything for getting more pups on the ground is a big deal. So that's what Fossil Rim is. We've been trying to, I say we, Jason, our carnivore curator, has really been trying to make an effort to ramp up our program here, and just get some pups on the ground, and ultimately the more animals we can get out there, then hopefully once the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service can get that program in North Carolina back to a point where we can get animals there, then maybe we'll have LightHawk moving some animals into North Carolina. That'd be awesome.
I hope so. I hope we can help out with that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Very cool. Any additional thoughts that you'd like to share about LightHawk or the conservation efforts that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I guess I'd just say, I mentioned that this spring we flew those 7 newborn Mexican wolves that were placed in wild dens. And, that was just such an incredible effort for us to be a part of. And, with all the challenges that are going on and with the pandemic right now, and on top of the regular challenges of transports, we're flying more and more wildlife every year, and officially partnering with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, with that partnership launching this year as well, to support captive breeding and wildlife recovery projects throughout the nation. So we're just proud here at LightHawk, all of us, to be working to make a positive difference in the world and in wildlife recovery. And I hope that that we have many more successful red wolf flights in the future. And our pilots are really excited about all that's happening with this additional wildlife transport work that we're doing. I mean, really, it's a relatively small piece of what LightHawk does overall throughout North America, but they are some of the most logistically challenging and exciting and rewarding flights that we do. And so we're thankful to you guys for everything you guys did to help make that successful as well. And look forward to doing more.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I was going to say is, I mean, I hadn't heard of LightHawk previously. I'm surprised of that, but now that I do, I hope that we can get some of the word out that there's a company like this that exists, that's moving animals free of charge to institutions like Fossil Rim and others that it's amazing that there is a way to do that, and that y'all have been able to do that for so long. So yeah, let's talk about you guys and get that word out, because that's amazing. So I really appreciate you joining me on here, and thanks again. And Esther, anytime you're around Texas and you want to come out to Fossil Rim, hit us up. We will definitely get you out in the park, and maybe we could even check out some red wolves.
Thank you. I hope that I'll be able to do that at some point. And I'll just mention one more fun fact about a recent wildlife transport that we did this summer. We got involved with transporting endangered white abalone out of Bodega Bay to be outplanted into restored reefs in Southern California in the LA area. And we flew 4,500 baby white abalone, and apparently, according to our partners working in the Bodega Bay lab there were, for a brief time, more white abalone in the sky than in the sea. So as you can see, sometimes these flights can really make a significant difference in the world of wildlife recovery.
And obviously, I mean, you're moving animals that, like the Mexican gray wolf, which there are only, it's only 100 plus in the wild, and every one of them counts. And to the article that you had in the Connect magazine, AZA's Connect magazine, this year ramped up the pup delivery out there. So this was a big year for having pups and cross fostering them into dens, and LightHawk made that possible through a pandemic, which is, that's just, I mean, huge. So really cool stuff, and glad that we've been able to work with y'all now and get established. So maybe in the future, more cool stuff like this can happen, and we can really make a difference with some of these animals.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Garrett. And hopefully we'll be working together again soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.